had a number of people comment to me the last couple of days defending Brent Venables from this standpoint, that he's a defensive genius, but he needs his type of players. And basically to say, dismiss what goes on for the next year or two. It doesn't matter. He needs to get his players in. Well, that might be true to the extent of trying to build an elite defense, but I got to think that that's not Brent Venables' excuse. And I got to think that he's too good, and he has to be too good to have to be that stringent to, well, I can't coach up the guys that I have. I got to wait 2 years until I've got 2 recruiting classes in. Yeah, he's too good for that. We've seen other coaches that are of that status. Obviously, they take over programs with players that they didn't recruit and sign, and they make them better. So we'll see how good he is to take whatever unit he has defensively that wasn't anywhere close to this level of ineptitude in the past. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that statement, Mark. And just to steal a little bit of a line from Gabe Eicher that he mentioned, I thought this was spot on, because yes, I've heard the same narrative, in my circle, just in terms of, once Venables gets his players in here, that'll be different. Well, you've got TCU that's literally went through the same exact thing that Oklahoma did. They got a new head coach, new staff. They're implementing new schemes, things like that, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, but still, and they're not performing at this level, right? I mean, when you think about it, Oklahoma has they're giving up, they gave up 55 to TCU, and they gave up 41 to Kansas State, right? So that's 96 points in just 2 weeks, and those are coming in 2 of the, at least from Kansas State, not one of the better offenses in the Big 12. So there's a lot of concern, and something that has to get resolved, at least to a certain degree, very quickly. The only thing that the comment that I'll make around having his players, yeah, I mean, I think he'll need to get his own players in to be closer to an elite defense. But to your point, Mark, you can still be a very respectable defense with with other coaches' players, right? They're littered with 4-star guys all over the defensive side of the ball that just aren't performing. Jalen Redmond's not playing well. Ethan Downs is not playing well. Reggie Grimes, after having 2 really solid games the first couple of games of the year, he's not playing well. Just all across the board, these guys that a lot of people thought very highly of coming into the season just aren't playing well over the last couple of games. So, we'll see. Is it one of those things where some of the kids are thinking too much and they're not making plays, or what the issue happens to be? I think, when you look at physicality and stuff that was brought in from not only Venables, but from Schmitty and things like that, the one thing that you have to understand, and this is not an excuse by any stretch, but this team lacks mental toughness. I think a lot of these players on the defensive side of the ball lack mental toughness, in terms of they've not seen a lot of success over the last so and so years, but then when you look at it, things were going well. There was a lot of positivity in the program when things were going well, but now that things are not going well, you saw a little bit of quit on the both sides of the ball, but particularly defense. I mean, and that's the thing that's probably, from a coaching perspective, I think Venables probably hates the most was watching the, kind of the lack of effort there, late in the game. And so, again, I don't necessarily, these guys didn't forget how to coach. When they moved from Clemson to Oklahoma, they didn't forget how to coach. So now there's some there's a lot of thought whether or not between, Ted Roof being the defensive coordinator, is he actually calling the plays? Is he just kind of a figurehead up there? Is Venables actually the one calling the plays? So I don't know that we'll ever know necessarily what's happening. That was, to me, Mark, the only of the only defensive hires, that was the only questionable hire that I would say was a little bit of an eyebrow raise, right? You've got that guy that, Ted Roof, who's very respected in the industry, but he's moved around a ton, and there's certainly a reason, a reason why they've he's moved around. So I don't know what that looks like in terms of if the players aren't necessarily responding to him, from that perspective. But we know that Venables has a very big mark on the defense, so to speak. So, but yeah, whatever they need to do, whatever they can do, need to get it fixed in a hurry, because there's no, obviously with Texas this weekend, and then Kansas the next, there's not room, to to your point earlier, how there's no Vanderbilt in this league this year. You've got great offenses across the board, and you've got a Kansas team that I think a lot of us thought, hey, they're a pretty decent team this year. They're much improved. They're a great offensive team, but maybe not quite as good defensively. Well, they just won a 14-11 game over Iowa State. Iowa State's not the best offensive team in the league, but still holding a team to 11 points, which just scored, I think, in the 20s against Baylor last week. So you don't have any rest for at all. So we'll see what they can put together on Saturday. But they're not only their pride is wounded coming in, but they're obviously physically wounded, more on the offensive side of the ball than defensively. But what kind of a team mentally and physically comes into Dallas on Saturday will be interesting to see.